In Canada, above the Arctic Circle, lies a land the white man knows as the far north, and the Inuit who live there call the top of the world. It is a vast expanse of rock and snow, where trees refuse to grow, a wilderness swept by the coldest winds on Earth, where nature is as powerful as its legends. This frozen landscape will be the setting for an extraordinary cinematic expedition. Born of Montreal film producer Claude Léger's wildest dream, it will bring to the screen a masterpiece of Canadian literature, Yves Thériault's Agaguk. The dream began with a nightmare, that of raising no less than $32 million. But Claude Léger and a battery of lawyers headed by Charles Smiley came up with this astronomical amount. Here at the top of the world, some 100 technicians and actors, along with tons of costumes, props, and film equipment, would come together under film director Jacques Dorfman to bring the great adventure of Agaguk to the screen. It is winter. Temperatures hover around 40 degrees below zero during the day, dropping to 60 below at night. It is indescribably cold.
OK, on part, préparez le feu. OK, take your position. The wind machine. Wind machine.
Agaguk will be portrayed by actor Loue Diamond Phillips. Around him, an entire film crew has been mobilized to recreate winter. Before he leaves, Agaguk sets fire to the white man's house. Stored inside, munitions. His father, Kroomak, the village shaman, will be played by the great Japanese actor, Tashiro Mifune.
The spirit of the White Wolf will hunt you down!
Agaguk will not be alone. Joining him on his journey, Igiyook, played by Jennifer Tilly. Yves Thériault was not destined to become a writer. Rather, he dreamt of becoming a boxer. To him, boxing represented man's innate animal instincts. But for Yves Thériault, this was not to be. His plans were derailed by tuberculosis. From then on, Terrio would write and write and write. Legends, short stories, novels, until he achieved literary grace with a masterpiece translated into 14 languages. Agaguk. Running ahead of him as he makes his way to the white man's village is Agaguk's most highly prized possession, his team of huskies. With powerful muscles for running and warm coats for protection, these dogs can cover mile after mile without stop, without food. In fact, they love running so much they won't stop, not even for the camera.
To begin with, I loved Terrier's book, Agaguk, and I was very enthusiastic. I was really in love with the book, and I wanted to do it. It is Terrier's book, but it is our film. But now you have to use certain material to do the movie, and my choice was for that film to go and to look for authenticity as much as we could for everything, the object, the costumes, the sets. I think it's part of the dream, to be transported in another world, another place. And I feel to have all the little pieces of equipment, objects, whatever you use, when they are real, it's really fun and it's really beautiful.
Authenticity, the key word behind this story set in the 1930s. Attention to detail, it was everywhere. From sealskin, they'll produce a kayak or an umiak. Almost every item in the movie could be a museum piece. Wolf Kruger is named art director. For his sets, he needs countless props true to Inuit tradition. And so it is that hundreds of copies of that great fish of the Arctic char, are produced for the movie's summer village scenes. Director Jacques Dorfman wanted the freedom to shoot close-ups of any item, so everything had to be authentic. Objects were borrowed from various native museums and duplicated as needed. In fact, the artisans hired for the movie soon became expert craftsmen of Inuit art. Indoor scenes required the building of the large communal igloo, where Kroomak staged his shamanistic seances. In a quarry on the outskirts of Montreal, the production company erects a trading post reminiscent of those that once thrived on the shores of Hudson Bay. Trees would have to be brought in, lots of trees, to hide the quarry and conceal the electrical wires. Lots of trees as well to build a small chapel, a general store, and several period houses. Even a boat trapped in ice would be built. Next comes action and the magic of filmmaking.
Igiyook, for her summer scene in the whalers' camp, it will be made of seal, which is much lighter than the caribou.
Olga Dimitrov. It's her job to outfit the film's actors and extras. A job that requires her to research Inuit culture, design and sew flawlessly traditional costumes. Because imitation is simply not possible, caribou hide and sealskin must serve as the fabric for all the film's costumes. Inuit co-ops ship hundreds of surplus pelts from the far north to the production's Montreal workshop. Actors and extras will need two types of costumes. Winter costumes made of caribou hide because of its longer fur, and summer costumes in sealskin with its shorter fur.
She make it like her silk.
In the far north, only the elders, and few of them at that, still wear traditional costumes. And so when some of the young extras come in for a fitting, they're often surprised to learn how their own mothers made these garments.
The amount of costumes they had to make, because I mean these were real caribou fur, these were real sealskin. We're creating a culture here that has existed the same way for, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years.
For a few months, entire families will leave villages like Kuujjuaq, Pravonituk, Inukjuaq, and Kuujjuarapik to take part in the filming of Shadow of the Wolf. Though initially surprised by this tremendous undertaking, for some it was their first time away from their village, they soon grasped what was expected of them. They were not to play a role, but rather to be themselves. They would discuss the script, make suggestions, and bring changes.
Quiet. Roll it.
The Inuk people who came down were just, I mean, they were amazing. I mean, they were fascinating. And I'm not talking about, you know, from some anthropological standpoint. I'm talking about as actors.
And also knowing that the background, people have to talk and talk, you know, not about anything, but about something about the scene. And they start to write some dialogues in Inuktitut about, you know, what the scene was about. And we get great scenes in the background action that they completely made up.
Well, that's what you're not supposed to know, David. When you're an actor, you're supposed to know that it's not going to stop.
I'm not an actor, eh?
Huh?
Pay attention to me.
You are now an
I'm not
actor.
acting.
You are now an actor. You should know it's not going to stop.
Yeah. That's mine. He likes the most of it. The waiting times is annoying for him.
Acclimated and got used to the procedure and everybody yelling, and then all of a sudden everything quiets down and someone says action and the cameras are rolling. They perform like old pros because they commit so much. They go for it so much that, you know, you tell them to cry, they cry. They laugh, and they laugh boisterously. You know, you tell them they're angry, and, you know, there it is. The purity of their work in this film, you know, they were amazing. There's no use killing the white men. There are too many of them.
Is that the only reason?
We must go on living and wait for the white man to change.
Here, nature is unalterable, and it is the seasons that dictate the order of things. In winter, the sun rises at 10 a.m., only to set 4 hours later.
It's, you know, so incredibly cold every day. And I think the record was one sunrise shot that Jennifer and I did at, it was like 6 in the morning, you know, and it's always coldest before the dawn. And rumor has it that it was minus 67 outside.
The cold. It's been there since the first day of shooting. Even the dogs complain about it. The wind chill factor keeps thermometers frozen at 40 below. The cameras as well as the technicians suffer in the cold.
Sometimes when you're out there freezing and you say, what on earth am I doing here? You know, it's just, I mean, why don't I go home right away? Just do something else.
It's so much effort to say something when you're out there in 67-degree below weather that you really think about what you're going to say before you say it, because it means you have to push your hood back and you have to move your mouth, and your face is so cold and frozen that, you know, if you're going to say something with a lot of syllables and a paragraph, you think better of it and you maybe get it down to 1 word or 2 words to convey your meaning, because it's just too much effort.
If we had a relatively mild day, like minus 15 or something, the costumes were really toasty. We were actually warmer than the crew. And even though we shot all the interiors in a studio, recreating the interiors of the igloo, we had those heavy parkas on, so I mean, we were sweating like pigs.
Playback.
1, 2, 3.
But the cold does have its advantages. Both the technicians and the actors know they're working on a movie unlike any other.
No one will ever know how really cold it was. You know, they're gonna sit in the theater and go, "Ooh, it looks cold," and they're not gonna know the half of it, you know?
One day, the crew is dropped off on a glacier some 1,000 meters up to film dog sled scenes. One morning, thick fog shrouds the glacier. Visibility is nil, making it impossible to shoot. By some miracle, the production's glacier specialist and the helicopter mechanic are still alive. Fortunately, the accident occurred less than 1 kilometer from camp. In Iqaluit, the distress signal has been received and a rescue team has been dispatched to the glacier. For at least 2 hours, the helicopter can be heard close to the camp, but cannot be seen. Nor can the helicopter spot the camp in this pea super. Finally, there it is. The injured are evacuated to the nearest medical center. The mechanic has suffered a concussion and 2 broken ribs. The glacier specialist a few scratches. The pilot is unharmed. Following the accident, the camp is closed, and filming of the dog sled scenes is put off to a later date, when the weather clears. Chased from the village by his father Kroomak, Agaguk is forced to travel across a frozen wasteland. Alone with Igiyook and the demons that haunt his days, he pursues his destiny. Along the way, he comes across elements of nature, some of which will be unleashed against him, testing his courage. One of the cruelest of these encounters will be with Nanook, the most powerful creature of the far north, the polar bear. In July, few places on Earth are still covered with snow, and few polar bears on Earth are able to make movies. The snow could be found on a small island in Siberia, Bolshevik Island, some 40 hours from Moscow and yards away from the North Pole. A place so high and so far, the Russians tell us that on a clear day, you can see the feet of God. Here at Miss Baranova, the film crew sets up to shoot the confrontation between Agaguk and a polar bear. Nothing will be spared to make this a colossal encounter. 2 stars of the Moscow circus have been brought in. They can dance, ride a bike, and play ball. Here is Aika and Grab, her half-ton companion. They've taken a leave from their show to come and fight Agaguk. But first we have to build an igloo for the bear to destroy. Canada's Inuit would easily have built one in an hour, but the Russians aren't familiar with this type of abode. It'll take a miracle to keep these pieces of ice together. The bears are ready, and both seem anxious to get this assignment over with. The igloo is also ready. In fact, it's so poorly constructed that everyone expects it to collapse the moment the bear's paw hits it. Finally, Graham leaves his cage, looks out, and rushes, not towards the igloo, but towards the tundra, his native land. Denisyenko, the trainer, is bewildered. Obviously, filming will take longer than planned. Graham is forced back towards the igloo. All he has to do is stand up on his hind legs and use his weight to destroy the igloo. But he's in no mood to demolish it. He'd rather move in. Now it's Aika's turn. The bear must stand on its hind legs. But what is a basic trick at the Moscow circus becomes much more complicated here in Siberia. And so Denisyenko must retrain his performers from scratch. The problem is, the scene must be shot with Graham, but he's twice as big and twice as dangerous. Denisyenko doesn't want him on his back. He's simply too frightened. A simple solution is found to avoid a possible accident.
No? No?
Again, Graham heads for the igloo. He senses that something has changed. The trainers have hidden his favorite meat in the roof of the igloo. As expected, he slowly rises. And the igloo still stands. No one understands how an igloo this fragile can withstand Graham's tremendous weight. The entire scene will have to be rethought. Back in the Canadian far north, another bear has been invited to join the cast. Someone in the habit of destroying professional wrestlers rather than igloos. Gary Robbins is a giant of a man who knows what is expected of him.
I don't know.
It's tight.
It's tight?
Wait, this is all I gotta pull the shoulder harnesses up. Yeah. Bring it up.
Goodness.
Could you walk a little bit with that?
I know one thing we're not gonna be able to do.
What?
We do that one of the haunches. Impossible, because I'm solid from my feet here. It's solid rock.
You cannot come towards
No.
me? Because of this here?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So it's a standing beer.
Well, we could try anything you want. Just get some guys to hold me there and do a quick shot. Because I use my ass. Let's do the whole back up and have a look at this damn thing.
When shooting a scene as complex as the battle between Agaguk and the polar bear, a few quick close shots can easily be obtained without using a live bear. If Gary Robbins has put wrestling on hold for Agaguk, it's simply that he's needed for a few specific scenes.
Hurry up, my ears are freezing.
Okay. Put it in place. Let's get ready. As soon as you're ready, we can try that. Absolutely. Haven't stopped. Are you okay, Gary? Yeah. Shin. Start rolling. Start rolling.
Action, Gary.
There.
And action.
Action! Lupe, we have a bear?
It's fabulous.
Back in Siberia, The situation has hardly improved. For the past 10 days, Graham has been leaving his cage, walking slowly towards the igloo, standing against it without ever budging it. And all the while, the cameras keep rolling as the crew keeps hoping.
Cut.
Then, one day, Graham decided to get it over with.
Bravo. Da bosa, Graham, bravo. Vieni pa di Maio, bravo.
He even wanted to do a little more. One of the trainers fortunately escaped with little more than a fright. Between Gary's work in Iqaluit and Graham and Ika's work in Siberia, Agaguk was in for a rude awakening.
In dealing with the curse of his father, as he is banished from the tribe, his father places a curse on him that this white wolf will haunt him. In the end, you know, be scarred by it, be partly consumed by it, and yet survive it and carry the scars with pride. The wonderful thing for me in this role is that it is without guile. There is nothing that is hidden. Agaguk is such a primal, basic character that many times he's a child, and many times he is an animal.
This is Babe, a magnificent white wolf and an experienced actor. His film credits are impressive. He will be required to throw himself on Agaguk and disfigure him. No more, no less. Here again, we're dealing with a tamed animal, one who has lost his fear of man and has been trained to control his instincts. Only now, he's being asked to do what he has always been prohibited. He's being asked to attack a man.
Roll. Whoa.
Someone's moving back there.
The filming grows more complicated. The wolf must not fear Agaguk, who is below him. In fact, tonight he must attack him. This is one of the most important scenes in the movie. The trainer introduces Babe to Agaguk. For the moment, it's important not to rush things, but to make Babe understand that he must leap on Agaguk and bite his face.
Babe. Right. Come here, babe. Come here, babe.
Dozens of takes later, things are still not moving. Babe simply refuses to attack.
Babe. Oh.
The scene will have to be handled some other way. Since Babe doesn't have the ferociousness the part calls for, a taxidermist is commissioned to create a fake wolf, to be used in some close-ups to produce the required effect.
There's a nez un peu. Ah, c'est ça. C'est dur, hein, étant flexible de même, là, c'est... Là, on l'a. As-tu les épingles? OK. Là, ton bras, ouais. Mets ton bras en avant, hein. Mets ton bras en avant. Ouais. C'est bon, hein?
C'est déjà vers nous, ici.
Il faut qu'il fasse le sursaut du coup, alors.
Ah, ça c'est
On la tient quand même, non? La dernière? Monique, c'est dur, ça, c'est les deux dernières.
Hey guys, we're finished with that shot next.
Action.
Babe will be brought back for one important shot. He will have to bare his teeth to the camera. The trainer teases him to the point where, with lightning speed, Babe grabs his hand, leaving teeth marks that will require 20 stitches.
First thing we try to solve is the problem of the whale, but then you need to put the whale in the water, and then you need to put a set around that water so that it matches the screenplay. So that all together it makes a huge set. Therefore, we came to the conclusion that we had to have our own whale.
Agaguk's greatest challenge will also prove to be the biggest technical challenge of the production, as well as the most complex shot in movie history. It will feature the largest mammal on Earth, the whale. In another quarry on the outskirts of Montreal, hundreds of carpenters, technicians, engineers, designers, and painters worked around the clock to produce the most ambitious sets ever. While the far north is white, everything here in the quarry is brown and dirty. The walls will have to be painted. Thousands of gallons of paint will be needed. While the north is white, the icebergs here are still black, and as snow can't be counted on to cover them, they will be iced over one by one. The set is almost ready. Only two key elements are missing: the water and the whale. The whale was designed and built at Pinewood Studios in England. Crossing the Atlantic in the hold of a large ship, it eventually arrived on the set where everything is now ready. It is 14 tons of steel, girders, axles, and ball bearings. The English engineers have tested scale models, but this one is brand new and never been tried. Theoretically, the whale was well designed. It travels on rails, and its movements create the impression that it is moving out of the water. The moment of truth will come when the basin is filled with water.
You're making believe. It's all, you know, illusion. Because the whale, you never saw all of it, first of all, but when it would come up out of the water, and there are a couple of dozen guys in the umiaks and in the kayaks, there was really this sense of doing it. I mean, it was amazing because you'd have to paddle, and man, it was just amazing. It was exhilarating.
Sail slow.
Yeah, it's awful big. My harpoon is awful big. Sound off. 1, 2. Sound off. 3, 4. Bring it on down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Action, whale. Action, David. Good. Whoa!
Until now, the whale has played its part beautifully.
Here you go, is that?
It is now Agaguk's turn to outwit it.
That's good. All right, thank you. All right, let's get Jim ready, please. Let him down. Go ahead, guys. And let's regrab.
The scene works well. The whale can retire to the scrapyard.
This is certainly the hardest film I've ever done in my life. It's the hardest film I ever hoped to do.
Agaguk's adventure ends after 16 weeks of filming. It has been a monumental undertaking, which the crew will not soon forget.